Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Today we have a fascinating topic up for discussion, using AI to future-proof workplace wellness and how it can be leveraged to positively influence the workplace. So today we're going to hear from our panel members on their views on how AI can be leveraged to future-proof wellness in the workplace, while provoking us in new ways of interpreting AI against our own current ways of thinking and or perceptions. So quickly, what is artificial intelligence? Simply, artificial intelligence, or AI, is technology that enables computers and machines to stimulate human intelligence and problem-solving capabilities. So throughout this session, our panel experts will discuss AI and how it has the potential to transform several aspects of employee well-being, and how the field of mental health presents a unique opportunity for AI to make a significant impact. So before we begin, I'm going to introduce myself really briefly. I'm Voula, that's Hula with a V, Director of Talent Acquisition for Interac. And as much as I believe in a human-centric approach, AI definitely benefits myself, my team, and I enable my leadership team to use AI in any way, shape, or form to enhance their personal and professional well-being. There's a shortcut way to do it through AI. Let's do it, and let's get some fun in the work again. So please join me this morning. I'd like to introduce you to Danina.
Hello.
Over to you for a brief intro.
So Danina Kapetanović, I'm a healthcare professional by training, speech-language pathologist, who has turned into a chief innovation officer over a tumultuous career of about 30 years, initiated in healthcare, moved through the world of international development, and then finally ending up in my current role, which is the chief innovation officer for integrated university health and social services network for West Central Montreal, where I have founded and currently run our Connected Health Innovation Hub, or ROT, which has a mandate to instigate and reinforce already a very strong culture of innovation present in our institution, inform, train, prepare, inspire the future generation of innovators, as well as create a bridge between private and public sector in order to drive the creation of the next generation of digital health products.
And you speak 5 languages.
I do indeed. And I'm very happy to be here with you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Elizabeth Keller.
Thanks, Voula and team, and so happy to be here. And Montreal is my hometown, so first of all, that makes it even more of a great trip for me to be back here and talking with these amazing panelists, and to the audience for being here. My name is Elizabeth Keller again. I'm with Amazon Web Services. So yes, Amazon and Amazon Web Services. And we actually work nationally with all of our healthcare ministries, as well as hospitals and physicians, to actually implement new technologies to advance patient care. So I'm thrilled to be here. I also work on behalf of ISO globally, and I represent Canada for all of our digital health standards to make sure we can exchange all of this information around the world. So lots to talk about today on AI, and I come from the government side, so I understand healthcare delivery. I've worked with 40,000 doctors in Ontario to implement all the virtual care through COVID. So I very much understand the tough nature of healthcare delivery on the ground, and that's really important, and how innovation is going to actually help that.
Thank you. Camille, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Camille. Thank you to TECHNATION for having us today. Thank you for the panel to be here as well. So I'm responsible for the delivery center of Synechron, an IT consulting firm, and we specialize in digital transformation for the financial services. Our team has recently released we call it a Nexus AI suite of Gen AI products for our clients. And I'm responsible for 80 plus people in Montreal. So we have to scale, retain our talent, and make sure that we're upskilling them to be able to work with Gen AI in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Dan, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for TechNation for allowing me to come here and talk about this this scary term called AI. My name is Dan Bordenave. I was a kinesiologist in the healthcare field for a long time, which led me to invent a medical device that's currently being used in long-term care hospitals and retirement homes. While I was doing that, I started mentoring other entrepreneurs how to really get their business off the ground, which afforded me the role of the CEO of the Niagara Falls Innovation Hub 2, which is a large facility in Niagara Falls, Canada, and we help to specialize in bringing companies from idea to commercialization across many different sectors, but mostly focused on healthcare, agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing technologies.
Thank you. All right, well, let's get started. Elizabeth, my first question is for you. What are some groundbreaking innovations in digital healthcare in recent times? How can organizations and its leaders leverage generative AI insights, digital tools for its workforce to thrive and inform broader organizational strategies, such as talent management, workforce planning, and well-being?
Awesome. Well, that's a two-part question.
It
so
is.
I will, but I'm happy to answer it because all of us do find technology a lot of fun. But I want to talk about three particular examples in terms of some of the cool stuff happening, innovative stuff happening in healthcare that I thought you'd be interested in mostly today. So the top three that come to mind for me, and this really builds around workforce management because doctors, nurses, clinicians are very, very burnt out. The administrative burden on clinicians is real. The burnout is real. So learning how to actually use ambient listening and ambient scribing so that clinicians can actually do patient care instead of having to be typing at their computers when you go to visit them in their office is now real. So a lot of, in Canada, you're gonna start seeing a huge use of ambient listening and ambient scribing, which saves what we call pajama time for clinicians and having to put all of those records in your chart later on at night. So this is gonna revolutionize the way clinicians actually deliver care. It's also gonna provide them with advanced decision tooling. So when we talk about AI and Gen AI, being able to actually right at the clinician's fingertips, have AI actually look at the summary of the patient and recommend perhaps things that might have been missed, or recommend a treatment protocol that just came out or was released in the latest publications that maybe that clinician didn't know about. So that's really exciting. So ambient listening and ambient scribing is one that's really cool. Another one that I'm thinking about is actually right here, the Allen in Montreal is actually mapping the brain for the first time on AWS so that you can actually then anticipate some of the diseases and start to use Gen AI to apply to those brain-specific diseases. So that's incredibly exciting work taking place right here in your backyard. Another example that I thought you'd find interesting, I'm working with a surgeon right now at UHN in Toronto. And what he's actually doing is he's videotaping his surgeries and then using an AI, developing an AI algorithm, annotating on those surgeries and providing notes, and then uploading them so that people can be trained around the world on those surgeries, using an AI algorithm to anticipate those types of surgeries in other countries with other surgeons. So this is pretty amazing from a training and capacity perspective. Training is a huge, huge thing. So when you ask me the second part of the question, which is what are the main themes in terms of how we're actually going to manage the workforce in healthcare moving forward, three main things come to mind. The first one's training. So training's incredibly important for all of us to build this capacity around AI. For Amazon especially, we train worldwide and offer courses on Gen AI for free, available in 14 languages so that healthcare workers and your teams can actually build their own skills. And this is really, really important as we start to move forward. We all have to learn more, not at every level, to actually understand the implications of AI, but also to develop the skills and become practitioners ourselves. This is where it's all going. Number two, so retaining that talent. So how do you actually keep your workers happy? How do you know if they're happy? A lot of places do a once a year survey. That's what you get as an employee, and then they don't talk to you for another year. So now what we're actually doing, working with a lot of healthcare organizations, including AlayaCare, which again is in your backyard. It's a home care agency here. They actually match up the preferred shifts of the home care worker so that they're actually happier and they get the shifts they want, and they're less likely to go work for any other company. But moreover, they're doing daily checks on that employee to make sure they're actually happy with their job, they're getting what they need, etc. So this is actually keeping a workforce and retaining them. And the last one is deploying. So doing new ways of doing healthcare. So deployment in healthcare, virtual care, and then building on that. Danina is going to talk about remote patient care. This is a huge area for keeping patients healthy outside of hospitals, and using technologies like Alexa, monitoring your vitals, having a nurse on call as soon as you get discharged from surgery. So instead of having to sit here in the hospital, you can go home, be comfortable, and be monitored. Make sure that your drug adherence is working, because usually within the first 24 hours is the challenge that most people have. So right away, we're checking all of that, and you get much better service as a patient, and you're much more comfortable. So those are our three main areas, but I hope that answered your question.
That was incredible. As I heard you speak even from the other day on this topic, and this morning, and this conversation today, AI can sound very intimidating to so many of us, but you've simplified it in a way that it makes sense, and like we're ready for it. Where has it been all this time? So thank you so much for that. Thank you. All right, Danina, over to you. We're excited to keep moving forward and learning more. Despite initial skepticism about AI's role in health-related purposes, in what ways has AI helped improve mental health in the workplace?
So it's a very interesting question that sort of brings us at the crux of a lot of the issues that Elizabeth has covered in terms of readiness and development of the right kind of technology that really taps into the needs behind them, and that really takes into consideration the user, and kind of sits at that crux of benefits versus potential adverse effects. So I'll start with a concrete example. A pandemic was a challenging time for all of us, but in particular, it has affected the healthcare workers, causing tremendous amount of burnout. There was an exodus of a huge number of healthcare workers who, succumbed to pressure. The pandemic itself also disproportionately affected healthcare professionals, and so it became very important to create right kind of conditions to maintain the mental health of healthcare professionals. One way in which we did that is to understand, sort of create heat maps of stress. And so we've worked with a company in terms of co-developing and then consequently deploying a solution that has allowed us to really get a very good sense of where the high areas of stress are, all the while ensuring confidentiality and sort of confidence building with our staff, whereby they were able to sort of indicate what is their emotional state, and therefore from the perspective of the management allow us to intervene without singling out sort of a particular employee. So to that end, artificial intelligence really has a huge role to play, because not only does it allow for the absorption of large amount of data, but and interpretation of that data in real time, but also it gives you a capacity over time to predict and therefore act preemptively and proactively in making sure that you get ahead of the issues, you get a good sense of where the issues are, and you get ahead of the issues and put measures in place to ensure that the mental health issues do not cause the kind of exodus,
Right.
for example, that we have seen during the pandemic.
How could what would you, from your experience, what would you say is the next step to embed AI to further enhance the well-being?
So again, as I said, I think it comes down to, and I know Camille is going to touch upon that. It comes down to really understanding fully the benefits but also the potential sort of negative effects of artificial intelligence. So it absolutely has the capacity to make the mundane go away, to simplify tasks, to make the person sort of focus on what is particularly important if you speak from the perspective of the healthcare, so spending more time with the patient, focusing sort of on our craft, and therefore making the tasks more interesting, people more sort of involved, the upside. The downside, as we have discussed this morning, is that in order to get to a certain level of craft, it's a sort of an exponential growth process where you have to start as a beginner and then spend a certain amount of time.
Right.
And so making sure that we getting people to really understand the crux of the technology, making sure that they have the right skills so that technology can be developed in a way that it sort of you mitigate the measures that can ultimately negatively impact them is, to me, the way of the future. So what does that translate into concretely? So not only an engaged workforce that understands the basic concepts of AI, but an engaged workforce when it comes to technology development. So taking sort of a center stage in and contributing to development of the technology so as to make sure that it really truly addresses the needs and therefore avoids sort of the pitfalls of a workforce that is disengaged and that doesn't understand and that kind of can't get ahead of where the technology is taking us.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone have anything to add to that?
I think you covered it all, but it was it's very inspiring to know what we can potentially do to also provide better access to healthcare as well, and making sure that the people who are working in those fields are taken care of, so they can take good care of us as well. And it's exciting to see that we already have solutions that are helping us towards this.
Thank you. Dan,
Yes.
over to you.
Perfect.
I'm really looking forward to hearing your perspectives on this theme. AI means pervasive change. What strategies can organizations and leaders implement to promote a thriving work culture, make the workforce feel safe, or to combat that worry that AI will dehumanize the workplace?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, that, AI, it seems like it's a relatively new thing, but it's been around for a number of years. I mean, your social media algorithms are all AI. So if you like sports, you're going to find sports. Or for me, this past weekend, I was searching poutine, and now my social media is full of poutine posts too. But the fact is that it's always been around. It's just that for the first time, it's accessible to everybody. And what that does, it puts a fear in people to say, oh my God, my job's going to be replaced. But it's up to the employee to make sure that they're upskilling and reskilling themselves, and the employer to provide those opportunities. A doctor who doesn't stay up to date with the latest literature is not a good doctor, right? So we have to start thinking about that as saying, how can we provide opportunities for all our employees to have that training, to have policies around using AI. When the internet first came out, everybody was worried that the internet was going to replace jobs. And then social media came out and people thought that I was going to replace marketing jobs and stuff like that too. But it's up to the employer and employee to provide opportunities for upskilling and reskilling so that they always stay up to date with the newest technologies. Now, the dehumanizing of the workplace, I actually think that the AI is helping to rehumanize the workplace. And COVID, if there's one good thing about COVID, is we during the pandemic, is we realized that there needs to be more to a work-life balance. Before the pandemic, we were all running on a very high octane, working around the clock, working all hours of the night. And then when we were stuck to work from home, we started to realize that, hey, you know what, I can be more performance-based as more time-based. I can do more in less time. And I think that AI is a perfect tool to do that. I know that I can write a proposal a lot quicker now by pulling in bullet points and then using OpenAI to fill in the blanks. During the pandemic, again, we started communicating in email in very short forms, one-word answers, quick responses, using more chats like Teams and stuff like that too, to be more efficient in the workplace. And I think that having an AI tool allows us to be more efficient in the workplace, allows us to do a lot of the tedious, mundane tasks that we don't want to do. It allows it to fill. So it's almost like having your own personal assistant always working with you. And in a world where a lot of organizations don't have enough funds to give their employees raises all the time by
Right.
allowing them to have a better work-life balance, allow them to have tools so that they feel more comfortable in the workplace and that they can actually, do more in less time by using these tools will actually create a more thriving work culture. So I think the dehumanizing, I think that's just, more of a myth. I think it's actually going to provide us with more opportunity for more interactions between us because
Right.
we're using the AI to substitute those mundane and tedious tasks.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
And if I may jump
No,
on
that was
this,
incredible. I was gonna, if you don't mind,
Sure.
if I may add, working in HR and you think of the use of technology and recruitment, I've often been asked, how do you humanize your process with the use of so much AI? And our organization uses AI to really leverage a human-centric approach to all of our people interactions. So if I use the short version, or the short listing, or allow the algorithms to produce outcomes for me, I can actually enjoy an eyeball-to-eyeball conversation with
Exactly.
people. So I really value all that you shared right now. Anyone else want to chime in?
yeah, I just want to jump on something that you said. It's not only AI is a time savior, but it requires us to review also the results of AI because, again, AI doesn't think like we do. And so it's not always, the accuracy is not always there. And so it's important for everyone to review the work that has been through or is coming from a Gen AI. And that the previous panel was talking about critical thinking. So it gives us also the opportunity to invest more in critically think, which is what makes us human and stand out and connect better on more strategic levels, probably. So I think that would be a benefit as well.
Thanks. Go.
I'm just going to say there are some caveats, however, and I don't mean to be the naysayer of the group, but there's AI is only as good as the algorithm that you create and the data that you use to feed it. And so I'm going to let you, from your expertise, speak about the data
Exactly.
piece, but in terms of the algorithm creation, the role of the human, and again, going back to my earlier point, the importance of an engaged workforce, not just from the perspective of understanding what it is, but actually being involved in the development thereof. During COVID, there was an explosion of AI algorithms that promised to sort out all sorts of issues, and very few delivered on the promise. And one of the very early studies that looked at the behavior of AI, the effectiveness of AI, found that what worked really well in the lab ended up not working very well in the real life environment. And underlying the fact that doesn't mean that the technology doesn't have the promise that it can deliver upon, but it has to be created a certain way. It has to be very context sensitive. It has to have good quality of data, and it has to have engagement of those who deliver a service, understand it profoundly, and all of these sort of aspects then create algorithms that can be truly functional and truly used. But without that, there's pitfalls and there's dangers as well.
Yeah, and I love that, and absolutely, we call it the democratization of data and the democratization of AI, a very important concept that you don't leave big swaths of humanity behind in this journey. You really need to educate. You really need to bring people along so that they understand their role and how it could actually, you can develop skills at all ages, at all types, at all times in your life with the new digital tools available in terms of augmented reality, virtual reality. We're now using training methodologies around the world, and again, offered for free for all workforces. And by the way, skills centers we just built in South Africa, in Brazil, in Washington, and in other places where maybe they won't have access to those skills. You can walk in off the street and literally learn how to do coding or building or working with AI or learning about these new technologies, all for free. All with the idea that we used to have a problem about data that we didn't have enough. We're almost now tilting the other way where we have so much data that it's pretty much impossible for a human to do this on their own. So now AI can be applied to all of this data, and in healthcare for us, clinically, it's really important. there's a lot of data repositories the provincial ministries have put in place where, frankly, a physician doesn't have time to go through all that data for every patient and could possibly make an error. So now what we're doing is applying summarization and AI tools so that it actually provides the relevant information for the clinician so they can quickly understand what's going on and treat the patient, not worrying that they've missed something. So these are really important ideas around democracy, around how we get people involved, around training, because you're right, there is a big new world ahead of us, and we're just getting started.
Thank you. I hope you're all soaking this in. Camille, how can organizations measure the success of AI-driven wellness programs? And what key performance indicators, also known as KPIs, are relevant in assessing the impact on both individual and organizational levels?
Thank you for the question. So I think AI and well-being are two very hot topics. So, and they are on everyone's mind, and I'm sure a lot of executives have been thinking about what KPIs to use. But to get back to AI, I think at the end of the day, it's a tool, so we shouldn't necessarily reinvent completely the wheel. Obviously, it brings a lot to the table that I will talk about later. But when we're talking about well-being, I think we can keep our traditional metrics in the first place. So first, assess at the organization level, how are we doing? Is the workforce satisfied? Are they truly happy? And so here you're looking at attrition, turnover, DEI, demographics, trying to also cross-reference those KPIs together. Are people of color leaving your workforce more than others? Why? The amount of burnout or long leaves that you have. All of these are very important. Then I would go to a second level of KPIs, which is more at the program level. Well-being is very, very large. We're talking about financial stability. We're talking about mental health, work-life balance, benefits. It's, again, very broad. So having one program cannot tackle all of it. So evaluating whether the scope is correct, that would be my second level. I think the second layers of KPIs I'd be looking at. How many people are using the program intended? And then only finally, I would look at the AI, because the AI does bring, so if the program is backed up by an AI, I would be looking at KPIs that allow to mitigate the risk that we just talked about before, because it does bring a lot of constraints and limitations. We've all heard about hallucinations. Danina, you were saying about the algorithm reflects who's built it. We are flawed humans, so we have a lot of biases. So we need to make sure that the algorithm are not reproducing the systematic issues that we have in our society. So the accuracy level is important, the latency. And then again, Gen AI brings a whole other conversation about computing cost. So not all organizations probably can go ahead with having a lot of LLMs implemented. It also costs a lot in terms of energy. So if you have an ESG or a carbon policy, maybe evaluating those as well would be important. So I think those three levels of KPIs will probably help make sure that the AI program, well-being program developed is effective. And it has a huge potential to enhance the workforce well-being by providing, I think, a lot of enhanced and specialized customization. Each worker is different, they have different needs, by being also probably faster in implementation. And anywhere where you have a lot of data and not a lot of resources, usually AI is a good access. So for us, we've been using it a lot in our HR functions, making sure that employees can basically have a first level, basically it's a Gen AI that is first answering their questions and just, policy, concerns about policy, and then only it's escalated to a human if the Gen AI can't answer it fully. And if all of this is aligned, then I think we'll have like full functioning well-being programs, but it needs to be done, I think, carefully, ethically, and with a focus on education, transparency, and communication.
Thank you. Do you have any learnings or takeaways?
Look at the data that you input in your algorithm. And we work with financial services, so a huge focus on security is always important.
And I would say the involvement, if I may, the involvement of the user in the development of the AI. I keep coming back to that, but it's such a crucial component. Don't forget the human behind the technology.
That's right.
Implicate the human in the development of the technology.
Thank you. So I have a question I'd like to, oh, go ahead,
I
Elizabeth.
just, it made me think, you made an excellent point on the impact of, on our planet from a sustainability perspective. So we know AI has a massive impact. All of technology does, all of us using our phones every day. This is taking a lot of water, a lot of power. Sustainability is a huge new trend in terms of healthcare and where and how power is being used. Just a little stat for you. Every 5 questions you put into a large language model query, I'm not going to name the product you're using. It could be at any company. It takes a half a liter of water. So just think about that. So with every person on the planet and lots of researchers who are doing even more supercompute needs, we have got to be really cognizant of how we're building sustainability into our healthcare. Again, not just AI, but our application of healthcare generally and how we can help the planet. It's a new trend, and we're actually measuring that at AWS now and helping our customers actually. So from a KPI perspective, 100% measurable. I'd love to talk to you more about that.
I think Elon Musk said yesterday, by next year, we're going to run out of transformers as a direct result of use of AI. So it's a crucial component, and not just in healthcare, I would say across industries, right?
Thank you. I'd like to open my next question up to the group. So what are some best practices in the road ahead? How can organizations find the right balance between innovation and humanity? For example, the use of AI to enhance performance assessments, provide psychological safety, work-life balance, motivation, and engagement to its workforce.
Well, I mean, I think we have to think of AI simply as a tool that we use, and more of a validation tool to make sure that what we've done is being validated. Human error is around it's been around forever, and I'm thinking strictly in the healthcare. Doctors, clinicians, healthcare practitioners, they have burnout. They work very, very hard to have burnout. They make errors and make mistakes. The third leading cause of death in the United States is medical error. First is cancer, then heart disease, and medical error. That shouldn't happen, right? I mean, they're trained professionals. They spend years and years of school. You put your faith and your trust in them so they don't make these errors, but it happens. We're human, we make errors. So I think by using AI as a tool, as a validation tool, it allows them to feel more comfortable in their prognosis, diagnosis, and also it makes them feel more comfortable in what they're doing is the correct way to do it. There's a company that we work out of in Niagara Falls, it's called Emerge Connect. And it's an AI tool that you type in your symptoms and it tells you to go to urgent care, go to hospital, or book an appointment with your doctor. Now, that tool is amazing because what you're doing is you're now overloading the healthcare system. I forget the data, the stats, but there's some ridiculous number that the number of people that go to emergency is they don't actually have emergencies, but they're overloading the system. And the other day, I was with my father. He was on a bike in February, cycling, and he fell and broke his ribs. I had to get mad at him, like, what are you doing cycling in February? But it was a nice day. So regardless, I was sitting there and I was watching the triage nurse, and the triage nurse was just patient after patient after patient without any break. That takes a toll on her and her job, that she can make these errors too. So by having tools such as the scribing tool and having this Emerge Connect tool where that you can get the triage before the patient even comes into the emergency room, can save so much time and so much human error. So I think, from that perspective, I think it's a tool, a validation tool, a research tool that we need. If a doctor can put all the notes in, and then the AI can produce a list of potential issues with that patient, it saves the time, it saves the worry, and it saves the error.
If I may, as the naysayer of the group again, say there's caveats to that. Absolutely everything you said, and yet here we are. Emergency rooms flooded, people exhausted, technology not adopted. There's a lot of resistance to adopting technology. And so it takes a workforce that is primed, that is prepared. It takes conditions. It takes bridges between public and private. It takes keen understanding. It takes involvement. And it takes really understanding what is the psychology behind the resistance. And so I can tell you from the perspective of someone who runs an innovation hub that looks to foster development of technologies, user engagement is absolutely a key component for several reasons. One is to make sure that technology does no harm. Second aspect is the aspect of responsibility. So yes, there are tools, but ultimately the responsibility still rests with the human. And for as long as we haven't resolved that conundrum, there will be resistance on the part of certainly, maybe not the first adopters, but everybody else that comes behind. How do I use something that makes a recommendation in my stead when ultimately responsibility rests with me? Which leads us to the third component, which is the explainability. A lot of clinicians are resistant towards adoption of AI because they feel what they call the black box effect. How did something come up with a recommendation? Where is that recommendation coming from? All of this brings us back to the point that I have made several times now, and that is the involvement of the user in the process of co-creation of the technology. It is very, very important, not just to be able to use it to know what it is, but really to proactively get involved in the creation of technology. And the hub that I run really is a platform for that type of work to take place. We all of the technology, a lot of the technology that we bring in is the technology that has been co-developed, and what that means is that the user feedback has been built into the creation of technology. I would say that among them all, AI probably is where we have to insist on this notion the most, if we are to really see the benefit and the adoption that we're seeking to achieve.
No, and I'm gonna, to that point too. I completely agree. The resistance to using new technology, whether it's AI, even my medical device is a hardware device that is so simple to understand, but it was so hard to get physiotherapists and occupational therapists to jump on board because it's so stuck on the way of doing things, right? So to that point too, I think it really takes time. Right, and we're trying to rush the implementation of AI, but it just takes time. And the younger generations that are going to be studying in med school, they're going to already have that as part of their curriculum. So it's only be a matter of time before AI will just be part of every single role in the healthcare organization, and they'll be well trained and comfortable with it because it'll be part of the curriculum that they're brought up with. It's just a lot of the clinicians right now, they're just stuck in traditional methods of doing stuff, and they're scared of technology because it's going to take away time that they don't have to learn that. Right, so I completely agree.
So what are we doing about embracing and getting workforces and organizations, employers? Like, what are we doing to push the bar, raise the bar, and get the naysayers on board? Because they're going to be left behind at some point. Like you mentioned, the students, it's embedded in their way of working. And so how can we upskill the rest to look forward to all these elements that we've been talking about, well-being and being progressive and getting to that result a lot faster?
Back to the training, like the types of training that is now available it's truly remarkable using AI, where you can actually, and Amazon is watermarking a lot of their AI personas. But I was taking a training course the other day, which I do a lot of because I've got to keep learning at the same time too. It doesn't, we're all in this together. And looking at some of the personas that are getting created to make training so much more engaging, where you're not even sure if you're talking to a real person anymore. Not only that, the training is adaptive to me. So you can actually start seeing that, take a personalized learning approach to that learner, understand where they're falling short, how you can help them in certain areas, maybe other areas they're great at, and you don't have to waste as much time on it. So the little tests that come forward are actually adapting to your own style. The other thing is, I really want to talk about the wellness question you said back. One question back was personalized medicine. So I can't emphasize enough taking your cancer data and taking your genomic data and being able to have a personalized approach to your cancer will be game changing. So this is where I think the personalized approach at the worker level, the personalized approach at the healthcare level, the personalized approach at the doctor and clinician level, where we're helping them. It's this personalization, knowing you want to eat poutine on your phone. That's one example, but applying that to healthcare, I think is really interesting. And I think it's that humanization of an individualization factor that I think is important.
Thank you. I made a statement the other day when we spoke, and it was a statement around how a lot of people feel that AI is a threat to humanity, and you shared that example. And, it's so simple, right? So simple and impactful. So thank you. My final question, I think it's my final question. What are some defining trends to embrace in AI and workplace wellness, and how might they impact organizational culture and employee well-being?
So I'll go back to the example that I gave, and that is getting a sense of meeting people where they are. I think it's connected to the idea of personalization that you're talking about. Meeting people where they are and understanding their needs and sort of creating those heat maps and creating that predictive capability that allows you then to put mitigating measures in place before there's a deterioration of and in an environment like ours, which continues to be high stress. Pandemic was obviously an outlier event, but it's a stressful environment, and anyone would agree on any given day. And it's an environment where the needs far surpass the capacity to deliver. So the pressure on the people is tremendous, and so the ability to meet people where they are, create personalized experiences, understand what are the challenges and address those challenges in a personalized way is where I see AI having a tremendous role. I mean, there were some great examples that were given. Elizabeth, you mentioned what Alaya Care does, with the shift work, the ability to simplify repetitive, dull tasks, automatize them. All of this together, AI has a tremendous role in terms of mitigation. But before we get there, I think we have to understand where the issues are, and technology can definitely help in that regard as well.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And I think one theme we didn't talk about on the panel today is really about how leadership is really, really important. Canadians value their healthcare. They like being involved in their healthcare. They don't mind getting their healthcare funded. We pay a lot for our healthcare in Canada, and we appreciate our healthcare. And I think I'm really looking at the leadership in Canada. So I like the fact that Health Canada and many of the ministries are getting much more involved in these bigger decisions around AI, around where we're actually taking our healthcare from a Canadian perspective, looking at privacy and security, leadership around the world, building from the best so that we can actually learn from others and tackle this together. I can't emphasize we really need leadership at the top to really step in now and start taking more comprehensive approaches, not only to set policy, but to do like Quebec is doing, act as leaders and move forward on cloud-based mandates and on projects that are going to actually help and get measured. So that's my kick these days is better leadership, and glad to see people are involved.
And to jump on what you're saying, I think you're touching on a very interesting point, which is we need every sector to be involved and collaborating together. So government, industry. And so when we see academia, so when we see like organizations like Mila, Ivado, or groups like this, they're really pushing us forward in terms of in the industry specifically as well, making sure that we are embedding the best practices when it comes to AI. It's here to stay. Then we have a tendency to overestimate the short-term impact and underestimate the long-term impact. So make sure that we are creating the space to think about what's coming next, but much, much later. We didn't talk too much about, we did mention upskilling, but I think we're going to see a lot of different roles and different jobs. And that is also a source of excitement, at least when I'm talking to our software developers. Some of them are getting more excited about becoming prompt engineers and like looking at all the nitty-gritty in an algorithm that I can't speak to. But I think there is a lot of interest also from people, and that can be excited as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of it too is just making people realize that this is a time-saving, efficient tool to use. And with any organization, any sector, there's going to be a little bit of downtime to learn that. And that's what a lot of people fear is they don't have the ability to have that downtime. But the downtime for such an exponential growth and efficiency is needed too. So I think one of the things is people in organizations have to start making plans, have to start making rollout plans. Say, okay, within the next year, 2 years, we want to roll this out. So that gives people the idea, okay, this is coming, but I have time to prepare for it. When you're talking about the charting in the pajama, I was one of those people, and it was the worst thing ever because you're charting at night and you forgot what a lot of stuff you did during that day too. One of the companies that out of our hub, it's called Dosary 2, and what they do is they actually have tools like Stethoscope that is automatically charting as they taking your heart rate or your breathing. So again, it's scary because you're like, I don't have the time to learn about this new technology. But I think if people create plans, people will feel more comfortable knowing that it's coming. Just like when a company has to switch operating softwares, if you went from Google to Amazon or from Google to Microsoft Teams, it sucks. It sucks for an organization. It's a lot of downtime to learn a new system, but that system makes it more efficient. And if they see the end goal, then they might be more on board to jump on earlier.
Thank you. Well, I think I'm getting a cue that our time might be up. Such an engaging topic. So thank you so much for coming together and sharing your subject matter expertise and perspective on this really impactful theme that impacts all of us, like in our day-to-day life and what extends outside of our day-to-day life, personally or professionally. Does anyone here in this group have any questions? Maybe we can take one or two. Sure.
I have a question for Elizabeth and Daniel. The World Health Organization and the International Labor Organization last year released a big study, and it found that heart disease is the #1 source of occupational death in the workplace globally. And the biggest risk factor for that is long working hours. Do you have an idea of how long the efficiency gains from generative AI will take to materialize in the healthcare space, which is one of the places where people are suffering the most from long working hours? And do you think that those efficiency gains will just get backfilled by the really, really high demand for other services in that industry?
Hard to put a number to that. Obviously, it wasn't something I was prepared to answer on the spot, but I do feel that it's going to take quite a few years before it's, first of all, broadly adopted on all these new technologies. So we're going to have a little bit of a pain period in the next little while. The federal government has invested a lot of money in terms of trying to help fill that gap, support primary care, et cetera. But you raise that important point, which is how can we make the clinician burden way easier? And I know there's groups all over the world focused on that exact question. From a measurement perspective, I'm going to look into it now that you've asked it. And I do think that that's a really interesting finding and unfortunately not surprising.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to do is, they may correlate it between long working hours, but what else has happened in that person's life? What are their eating habits? What are their exercise habits? That all relates to heart disease too. So I think, it's easy to point at, long working hours is the reason for such a high heart disease, but it's what those long working hours, what that does to the person's lifestyle. And so I think, by having these AI tools that can allow them to take breaks and, eat healthier, exercise more, then I think we can kind of see those numbers go down. I think it's like Elizabeth said, it's going to take time. But I think, if we have to look at the whole person, not just their occupation, and say, what else is related to that heart? Because, many people argue that heart disease is a person-made disease that's related to lifestyle. So if that's a high-stress job, and that high-stress job is leading to poor eating habits, poor sleeping habits, poor exercise habits, then that'll all correlate to, heart disease too.
Open to others. All good.
I think that's a wrap.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thank you.
Mind meets machine, everyone. Round of applause.
Thank you.